Good morning or afternoon, maybe even evening, depending on where you're located. I want to welcome you to the fundamentals of self-organizing, self-managing teams, particularly learning together. We're going to talk today about the concept of high-performing teams and really in some cases the elusiveness of high-performing teams. Great in theory and for many people difficult to achieve even as part of the team or as a leader of this team. And so high-performing teams really at the end of the day they learn. And everything they do is informed by what they learn and how they process that information and then manage to it. So in this session, we're going to develop obviously it's a 1-hour session. We're going to really talk about the core foundation of learning and what it means, and so that you as a leader or you as the team can really start to understand the dynamic influencers that might be helping or hurting your team in terms of high performance. My name is Tricia Broderick. I'm an Agile Learning Facilitator at Santion, and I've had a variety of previous roles, especially when it comes to teams. I have had the privilege of being part of a high-performing team. I've also had the privilege of being part of performing teams, and in my opinion, I've had the privilege of being part of non-performing teams. In some cases, I've learned quite a bit that way. I've also been part of leading as a project manager, scrum master, teams and have to help to create an environment where they became high performing, and most recently was the director of development where I helped create a high performing leadership team. So I'm motivated and I give these webinars because in the reality is I realize how difficult this elusive high performance is, self-organizing and self-managing is. And so I'd like to give back and kind of share my experiences and really some of the concepts that helped me to be able to identify what was working, what was not, what was helping, what was hurting. And so with that, let's get started. So this is kind of an intensive image, but we're going to walk slowly through it. So when we first form teams, I use the word teams very loosely there because the reality is when we first put people together, they are still individuals. They have their own opinions, their own dynamic, their own backgrounds. They really don't know who anybody else is, what's going on, or how they're going to function together. When you get to a state of cooperation, and cooperation means willingness to work together, I like to highlight this as if you ask me for help, I will help you as long as it doesn't impact me. When you get to that type of state and dynamic within the individuals, you've really kind of gotten to a group state. Groups are willing to cooperate, willing to work together, but still kind of hold on to some of their individual goals that they have. If you provide them a common purpose and you really start to see collaboration start to occur. So cooperation was working together. Collaboration is creating together, where they take ownership. They no longer see it as mine versus yours, that we have these goals together and we need each other to achieve it. One of the dynamics, so if group is I'll help you if you ask, a team is I'll help you before you ask. We know each other, we trust each other, we all have the same goal at the end of the day. After a team, you can get to something that's called self-organizing team, where they're still a team, they're working, they're collaborating together, but now they're empowered to assign their own work. I have this sense of ownership, I have this sense of responsibility, and we can push each other within that. After they get to a trust level of assigning their own work, they can get to a level of self-managing team, where they're really now not just empowered to assign the work, but manage. Now, I put within boundaries because the reality is there are certain elements that as a trust builds between the leader and the team and within the team, you may need to increase those boundaries as they go on. So a good example of a boundary is, hey, anything that costs less than $500, you guys are empowered to make that decision. If it's more than that, please include me. And you may find that your boundaries change over time. You may find that your boundaries for one team is different than for another team. And after that, you get to self-directing team. And a self-directing team is really they set their own goals on top of assigning their own work and managing their own work. Not every company wants self-directed teams. A lot of startups want self-directed teams, and in a lot of cases they are. But in a lot of larger companies, they're happy with hitting self-managing team. Where you start to see really true high performance is where you start getting into that self-organizing and self-managing team. And that's why in Agile, you'll hear a lot about trying to achieve these levels of teams. So let's talk a little bit about the foundation of how we get through these different evolutions. So Aikido, for those that are familiar with martial arts, how is this relevant? Well, for myself, I was not a martial arts kind of gal, and then I attended a keynote session at an Agile conference. And Alistair Coburn, after he walked into the big keynote area playing the bagpipes, he introduced a concept leveraging the martial arts and referring to it as Shu-Ha-Ri. And these are really 3 stages of learning and mastery. So let's go through one by one. Shu. This is really where you are following the rules. You protect, you obey, you're a novice and a beginner, and you are given one set of instructions and you follow them. So for example, if I'm going to a new area and I ask for directions and I've never been there before, I want someone to give me one set of directions. If they give me multiple sets of directions, I'm going to get confused, overwhelmed. I'm really unsure. I'm unsure of my results. I'm unsure of what's going to happen, what I'm doing, and I need more guidance. I need more reassurance with that. And that's your beginning stage at Shu. Your next stage is Ha. And this is where you start to understand why you would choose one way versus the other. So back to my driving example, I may choose to go the back roads during rush hour because I'll sit on that expressway for a really long time, right? I understand the traffic patterns to be able to know when to choose one versus the other. In addition, within teams, this is very similar, right? They become journeymen where they start to understand why I would choose one approach versus the other and make decisions. But in a lot of cases, they're still choosing between 2 existing rules. They're still choosing when to break the primary rule and when to go with another rule. Okay? They're still gaining understanding. They still need some support and encouragement, but not as much as the Shu level. The final stage is Ri, and this is where you start to just kind of become the rules. You don't even actually realize you're doing it. I know personally I've been talking on the phone, which shouldn't happen while I'm driving, but I was, and all of a sudden I realized I had driven to my gym. I meant to go to work, but I drove to my gym without even thinking about it, right? How many times has your GPS actually told you to churn and you laughed at it, right? That's when you're at that re-expert level, right? You're at this master level where you are creating and being the rules. You understand when something works, when you need to evolve it, and how to make it work for the situation that you're facing. These 3 levels, Shu, Ha, Ri, are required, right? Everybody starts off when they're learning something new at that Shu stage. Now, some people go through these stages faster. Some of us get stuck. So, for example, in cooking, I can't seem to get out of Shu. But in other areas, I've maintained Ri level. And it's different for each skill and for each individual. And so it's important to understand where individuals are at in their stages of learning, but also where a team is at. So if I transpose this 3 stages of learning onto our team evolution, you can tell in the individual, group, and team, there's a lot more novice levels, right? They need more coaching, they need more direction, they need more support in understanding what they need to do and why they're doing it so that they can get into the Ha, which allows them to get into some of that self-organizing, that team state. When you start to see that real true Ri level, you start to see the ability for self-managing, right? They're able to understand when something new comes up, how they need to handle it, what they need to do. There's more confidence from the leader as well as within the team that they can handle that. But that's a journey that the team has to go through. I want you to stop and just think for a second and kind of reflect back on your teams, maybe a team that you're a part of or a team that you're learning, and really understand where you are in this state. Where are you? You know, you can't put a group of people together and a group of individuals and call them a self-managing team from day one. Anybody familiar with the Lions knows that just putting people together doesn't constitute a team. Okay? So that's one model. Let's talk about another model, Dreyfus model. Now this is actually 30, 40 years old, and it really highlights about skills acquisition. Because at the end of the day, you cannot achieve high performance, so self-organizing, self-managing, self-directed teams, if the team members don't have skills. They have to have evolved skills. And in the Dreyfus model, they really talk about going from novice to expert. So let's break this down one at a time. So novice. This is very similar to shoe, right? You need close supervision, you want instructions, you're unsure about what you're doing, right? This is a level that a lot of people experience when they first join a company or first go into a new role or first try something different. I don't know what I'm doing. I want to figure it out. I want to learn, but I need reassurance as I'm going along. And then you get to the state of advanced beginner. And in some cases, this is where I find as a leader, most difficult for me to keep back and allow the learning to occur, because they begin to get just a little bit dangerous but don't have enough information to really make good decisions. So they're able to achieve some level, they're building up some confidence, but they don't understand everything that falls underneath and why they're choosing to do something. And this is really falling a little bit between shoe and ha stages, right? They're not completely at that level where they know when to break the rules, but they're starting to break the rules, so they trip up a lot in that case. But that's good for learning. The next stage is competent. Okay, and this is really where they're able to achieve most tasks using their own judgment. This is where you see a lot of people be referred to as dependable, right? This is in a lot of cases where people will stop the learning, right? I know when to break the rules, I know, and I can deliver, people trust me to deliver, but this is where they're just in that team state. Let's keep going to see where they can get to next. And that next stage is that proficient, where not only are they competent and they can deliver, but they take full responsibility. They have that ownership. And that's where you start to really see the ability to get into that high performance state, right? It's not just I can deliver, but I own the delivery. And it makes a world of difference in the output and the results and the quality and the satisfaction, not just for the customer, but for the individual and the team, when you have responsibility, when you have that feeling of autonomy and mastery. And so in this proficient level, they're making progress towards RE. They're experimenting in order to understand not just when to break the rules, but when to create the rules. And that gets you to that final stage, an expert. And this is where they sometimes even forget what the rule actually was. They just do it, right? They create it. They are at that stage RE. And so when I lay over both of these, you have still the shoe, novice, follow the rule to ha, break the rules to RE, be the rules. And the similar levels, only a few more. With novice, I really need that reassurance. Advanced beginner, I still need that, but I'm starting to learn, I'm starting to gauge, I'm starting to understand the principles that get me into competent. I can now start to deliver faithfully because I'm given assignments, I know why, the values behind, the reasons behind, I can choose. Starting to get into proficient of when to break those rules, starting to experiment with when to create them, to get into that expert level and into that RE level. Now, this is helpful for me on one level because it helps me not just see how the team is evolving, but sometimes how individuals are evolving. So in a lot of cases, I can see that somebody is kind of holding back the team as a whole because they're really unable to get into that competent or proficient levels. And that's going to have an impact to your overall team. You will never have a high-performing self-managing team full of novices. They're going to take time to get to levels where where you can trust them to make those decisions, where they can trust themselves and trust their own teammates to get to that point. And that's that evolution. But it helps me to understand where are people in their skill sets as well as where is the team as a whole. Let's talk about one other model, the Tuckman model, Bruce Tuckman. And just like the other two models, Bruce highlights that these phases that he talks about are necessary and inevitable. Okay? I would say that this model is probably the most known And so let's go through it though still for the benefit of everybody on the call. Forming. Forming is we're coming together, we're going to meet each other, we're in that group state, individuals kind of, hey, the project's been assigned, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, we're all coming together. This is what I like to call first date, I'm going to put my best face forward stage. Not recently, but I was once assigned to be a project manager for this application team, and my manager actually told me, you'll love this team, they never have conflict. And he was right, they never had conflict, but it was because they stayed at this stage. Instead, I would get multiple people from the team coming to me telling me how they didn't like this person, but they wouldn't dare voice it because they didn't want to cause conflict. The sad part is that gets you stuck in this forming state. And that forming state will never produce you results because the wisdom of the group is not being heard, because people are not sharing their thoughts. But once they do start sharing their thoughts, you get into the phase called storming. And this is usually very rough at the beginning and kind of scares a lot of people. I actually get excited when I start seeing it because I know that now we're getting to a point that we're going to start to be able to work through this. The key in storming is getting to not get rid of the conflict, but transition the conflict from unhealthy to healthy. The power of the wisdom of the team and the wisdom of the group is that everybody brings different perspectives and different experiences, and in that is going to be conflict, right? And the key here, especially as leaders, is helping to give the tools in the environment that help them really get beyond the storming in an unhealthy way and start storming in a healthy way, which allows people to be confident to voice their concerns, but still understand how to work together. When I talked about group going to team, the reality is when I conflict with somebody and then I see that he doesn't hate me after the fact, makes me much more willing to be honest and open and engage as we're going forward. And that allows you to get to this next stage where hey, we got past this ugly point, we're going to have moments, but we're starting to figure out how to work together. They might go back to that working agreement that they created in forming and go, well, that was cute, but now we know that this pet peeve is that we need to be on time for meetings because it sends Tricia through the roof, right? And you start to respect and understand so that you can truly help each other before you even have to ask. And that takes a little bit of time. That doesn't just happen instantly. Now you're starting to go, okay, we're beyond the storming of the unhealthy. This is in a lot of ways healthy storming section, right? We're starting to open up, be honest about what our needs are as individuals as well as the team. And upon completing that, that's when you start to see harmony and performing start to occur. This is where people start working together and they have that same goal and they start to see results, and which further pushes each other and the team as a whole. So when we lay this over top of the previous ones, right, we still have Shu Hari, we still have the skills Dreyfus model, and then I put the Tuckman model at the bottom. When you're in individuals and groups, in a lot of cases, there's not a high degree of trust. They're forming, they're putting on that good face, they're seeing what somebody else is, everybody's holding their cards very closely to themselves, right? There's not a lot of trust. That includes trust with the leader, from the leader and to the leader, right? The leader's typically new to the group as well. And then you start to realize the storming, and this is where cooperation, it becomes clear. Are they going to work together or are they not? Do they just really hate each other, and what other things do we have to do to accomplish and help them move beyond storming? Once they do, they're able to start norming, where they're starting to collaborate, where they're starting to work together, they're figuring out how to do it. For a lot of people, and myself included, this was the level that I got to that I did achieve success, right? We were able to deliver. I had a project team where we were delivering, people were collaborating together, worked together. What I didn't understand was that was a ceiling. And that was a ceiling that I, as the leader, was creating because the next stages really required me as a leader to do a little bit more. to provide opportunities and in the right environment for that team to go beyond norming into performing and into high performance of self-organizing and self-managing. And so let's talk just briefly a little bit about what that leader's role is. Enablement. Enablement is very tricky, okay? In a lot of cases, you're going to be doing a lot more enablement at the earlier stages, in that forming, in that storming. You're trying to create environments and opportunities to help the team get to the next stage, get to that next level of learning, get to that next level of performance. And so you might do things like work with facilities to help create a open space type environment so that there are more interactions, that they're working together more closely together. You might also be doing it to increase the storming, right? Suddenly they can't play pretend as much when they're constantly around somebody else, right? There might be various different reasons, but you're really looking for how do I change up the dynamics and help with the influencers and the opportunities for the team to get to the next stages of learning of where they're at. And in a lot of cases, that is part of those earlier states in SHU and in HA that you as a leader need to be looking at. The next level is empowerment. And I say next level, but in all reality, these overlap. There's no magical formula that says today you're going to be the enabler on the team. Today you're going to be empower. The reality is this becomes a chameleon role for a lot of leaders in understanding when they need to enable, when they need to empower, and some of the other areas. But empowerment is one of the trickier elements because it truly means giving people the freedom to succeed or fail. Now, a lot of us became leaders because we were dependable. We delivered. And we feel this sense of accountability, and yet no ability to actually perform. So we do things that are, unfortunately, send some mixed messages to the team. I had a brand new person come onto the team once, and I was like, well, I'm all about empowerment, so I'm going to let this person go. Well, they're a novice. They're in SHU level, right? They're forming with me because they're brand new on the team. And I looked at that individual and said, you're empowered to make these decisions, but you have 100% accountability. Later, I ended up realizing that person basically thought, well, great, I have a manager that's driving a bus aimed at me. Because they didn't really feel a sense of empowerment. They felt a sense of setup, right? Empowerment is something that occurs over time. And that's why I like to use the boundaries concept and things, because it's something that you're building a two-way trust, right? They're getting through those novice and advanced beginner and getting into competent, and you're beginning to trust their decision making, right? You're beginning to trust their results. In return, they're beginning to trust that you won't veto them, that you are expressing when you want to be involved and when you don't want to be involved, and what they're truly empowered to do and what they're not. The thing that kills empowerment the fastest is when the almighty veto comes in after the fact. And sometimes it's necessary, right? Sometimes it happens. But I like to try and believe and adjust to not come from it from a veto stance, but from another type of role that a leader must play, from a coaching stance. The first question I ask when I see something happen that I think to myself, oh my gosh, why did they make that decision? Instead of disappointment, I come at it from a perspective of what did I not teach them? What did I not show them? What information did they not have that made them make this choice? Because that's a responsibility for me as a leader to enable and empower for that learning. And sometimes they just need training, right? Sometimes we just need to help support and coach. Novice levels, advanced beginners, people in SHU need that reassurance, right? That's not a bad thing. That doesn't mean they're not taking initiative. That doesn't mean that they need micromanagement. They need support. They need to feel comfortable that when they push themselves out of their comfort zone, you're supporting them. You're enabling that to go outside of their comfort zone. You're empowering them to encourage them to do it, and you're helping them when they might do it a little wrong or they fail from it. I used to think that my primary asset to a team was my risk mitigation, right? My ability to see issues in advance and fix them. And there is a power in that skill. But the bigger power as a leader in that skill wasn't me fixing the issues, was me helping others to adapt as quickly as I could, right? The issues are always going to happen. We can sit and pretend that we can get rid of them all day long, but the reality is they're going to happen. So you're, as a leader, thinking, how am I going to help people adapt and learn faster than I did? How do I help them get to proficient faster than me? How do I help this team get to faster performance than I experienced? But there's a catch with it. It can be difficult to not take ownership. As people are learning, as people are in shoe, as people are novice and beginning, it's not in a lot of cases because they're lazy. It's because that's part of the reassurance, right? Well, my boss really owns this, or it won't be my fault because then it takes away a little bit of my fear in trying. So facilitation comes in really handy because the true art and skill of facilitation is being a neutral party. I will help create a process, create activities that help a team, help individuals get to their desired outcome, whether it's a decision or it's recommendations, whatever they need to do to get their goal is, but that I'm neutral. Now, this is really hard for teams to take leaders and have them be facilitators when they're in those earlier stages, right? At the end of the day, you're the boss, they're going to defer to you, they're going to assume it. So I will actually step back a little bit more from facilitation at the beginning and be more in the enablement, empowerment, and coaching. And as the team progresses further and further into performing, I become much more of a facilitator. I still look for opportunities to enable, maybe to push them a little bit further. I still look for opportunities to empower the individuals as well as the team, but I become much more of a facilitator and a lot less of a coach. I become more of a mentor in a lot of cases in those cases. But this is where it gets tricky, right? If I just facilitate at the beginning, people would be like, why is she not involved at all? But if I only facilitate at the end and I don't look for ways to continue to push the team, they may become stale. We want our teams to be constantly learning together, learning as individuals, developing, because it is a motivator. It is a motivator that produces results, not just for the customer, but for the team. And so let's recap just a little bit because we covered quite a bit, even though it's 30 minutes. Shuhari. This is 3 stages of learning. I use this a lot when I'm looking at the overall team. Are they at a stage of beginning and novice? Are they figuring out when to break the rules? Are they journeymen? Or are they at a master level? Are they handling unique situations? Are they self-contained in those? It also applies to individuals. It helps me to identify what level as a leader I need to be, what pros and cons are occurring, what dynamic influences might be happening. I can't expect as a leader that a team starting off is going to be masters right out of the gate. I have to go along this journey with them. In a lot of cases, when I'm looking at individuals, I look at the Dreyfus model to help me to identify and spot where someone might need more support from me as a leader and where they may need less support, where there might be conflicts. It's really difficult sometimes for an expert level person to coach a novice, and yet we do it all the time, right? We put the most senior person to help coach the novice person. The hard part with that is the expert no longer even really knows why he chooses what he does. He just does because it's so inherent for him, which makes it really hard for a novice, right? I've personally experienced well, why do we do that? I don't know, we just do it. And it's like, well, that doesn't help me, and it will never help me transition into advanced beginner or competent because I don't understand the reasons underneath. And so I use this to help me to identify a lot of conflicts that might be occurring within the team when one person's working with another and they're not able to communicate well. Or when a team is not able to get to performing state. Is there somebody that's kind of looking and needs more reassurance that's holding the team back? I look at all of those dynamics. And then I kind of use the Tuckman model to help see the overall communication and collaboration within the team. At the end of the day, you cannot be high performing if you're not collaborating. And if you're stuck in forming, you're just being polite, or you're stuck in storming and you're unable to make it healthy, or you're staying and going, hey, it's good, we're beyond the unhealthy conflict, let's not change anything else, that becomes stale. And teams are constantly learning and evolving in order to get into performing. If you want that path to high performance, they need to go through it, being individuals in a group, in a team, and self-organizing to self-managing. Maybe you don't need to get to self-managing. Self-organizing is a level of performance that your organization is comfortable with. But the difference even between team to self-organizing is incredible. And it's something that I didn't understand. You know, that's the tough part, right? You don't know what you don't know. And so for many years, I felt I had great team interaction, loyalty, commitment, working collaboration together. But because I wasn't, as a leader, really providing that opportunity and looking for ways to enable and empower and facilitate my teams, I was preventing them from becoming self-organizing. I had an individual that was on the team, and he was a tester. He was within QA, and he really wanted to take on the test engineering tasks that was into coming up in an iteration. And all sorts of red flags were going off for me. He had no development experience. He really didn't know what it meant. He just was kind of looking for a new challenge, and I'm panicking, right? As the leader, I'm panicking because we can't not deliver for the client. If we don't have quality test engineering and load tests, we could bring things down. And I had to kind of step back and say, those are all the risks. What are all the potential? What's the opportunities here? What's going on? And is there ways to make it a little less risky? So we figured out a way to actually allow this tester to take on that task, and we paired him. We didn't pair him with the top test engineering expert. We paired him with a competent test engineer, and that test engineer got benefits because they were helping to learn how to coach somebody else, right? And that was something they wanted to learn how to do. The tester got benefits because they got exposed to a new skill. Yes, they were a novice. Yes, they needed reassurance. So actually pairing them together worked really, really well. And in the end, it took a while, but that tester actually ended up transitioning into test engineering. But that opportunity would have never been there if my risk as a leader, my concerns, overruled the opportunities. And so it's really important. You know, I kind of laugh whenever I hear it's like, what's the point of leaders and managers? Because now they're self-organizing, they're self-managing, you don't need them. And in a lot of cases, to build the right level of trust, to build the right level of collaboration, to build a culture of learning takes a leader's influence, takes a leader's support, takes a leader's assistance. And so what do all of these have in common at the end of the day? They all learn together. The leader learns with the team, individuals learn, individuals within the team learn, the team as a whole learns together. And at the end of the day, learning is what produces results. They're able to scale, they're able to be more innovative, they're able to be more adaptive, and at that point, the sky's the limit. So thank you for joining with me today. I appreciate everybody taking time. I'm going to open it up for questions, and the way that we're going to do this is if you click on the raise your hand, it will send me a notification and I will unmute you for you to ask the question. Do we have a quiet bunch today? Okay. Oh, we got a question. Okay. Linda, let me unmute. Okay, Linda, you should be able to be heard now.
So I'm actually doing this on my computer, so hopefully, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll open up with a question typing tab for the next time, but this time we're just going to try it this way just so people can be heard.
Okay, great. How do you deal with the challenge where you've got an individual who basically is, I'm putting in my time, I'm just, here 8 to 5. I'm not really interested in really being part of a high performing team. So you've got kind of a lack of cooperation or a lack of excitement and motivation to try and do more. So how have you been handling that?
So I really try, I always joke and say that I always wanted to go back for my PhD in computer science, but I think more I would go back for my PhD in psychology if I were to go back for advanced training. In those situations, that tends to be a red flag for me that I do not actually understand what truly motivates this individual. Um, the reality is hopefully we're hiring smart, initiative-driven individuals. And in a lot of cases, people are motivated by different things. There's a great technique, a tool out there called Champ Frogs, and it's spelled the way it's CHAMPSFROG. And what that is a series of cards that really you can use to interact with someone and everybody on your team and saying, and I'm blanking on who's the source for it, so I apologize. I can think of his tool, but I can't think of his name right off, and it's blanking. But and it's going to come to me the minute I end this webinar, by the way. But this is a tool, and it has something like 11 cards in it, and they're cards that say status, like how people recognize me, purpose. They're just different areas that a lot of people are intrinsically motivated by. And it is fascinating to me sometimes what motivates somebody versus motivates somebody else. And so I try, maybe it's my prime directive of giving people the benefit of the doubt, but I try to believe that in those cases this person isn't inherently lazy or undedicated or uncommitted, that something else, we're not providing the opportunities that trigger that individual's motivations, right? Maybe they don't care about titles or recognition. Maybe they really are big on problem solving, and the key to that individual is his curiosity. And so it's not about some of the techniques that you're currently doing. You have to come at it from a totally different angle. If anything, it helps that individual to start recognizing, maybe I am in a slump. Maybe I am just phoning it in. What am I motivated by? What do I want? And you can start stirring those thoughts for that individual as well. So I would maybe look at tools like that and try and help to uncover what does motivate this individual, because it might be drastically different than what motivates the rest of the team.
Thank you.
Other questions? And again, you would just raise your hand on your control panel. Everybody else is worried that their computer won't work too. Okay. Well, thank you for spending your maybe lunch, regardless, your hour, less than an hour with me today. I appreciate it, and I wish you all the best on your journey of learning and in your team's learning. And have a wonderful day.